We've just had a new Fortune Aeternum about service improvements, which on the surface may not seem that interesting. However, I think there are 3 huge things that are either strongly hinted at or overtly stated that are going to be big for the game going forward. And they are OPI matchmaking, an auto group finder for expeditions, and a completely new inventory system. So let's jump in one by one and talk about what they said and what it means. So one of the first ones that is pretty easy to talk about is the OPI matchmaking. They've actually mentioned this a few times in a lot of dev updates and that kind of thing, but here they basically give us a little bit more information. Now, they don't tell us exactly what's going to happen, but they basically said that Crossworld enabled them to do other kinds of matchmaking. Either that's putting people with similar skill or putting ELO in there or something like that. And effectively the gist is that if you have just per server, then you don't have enough people actually competing to make it worth putting you against other people of similar skill. Now, I think having OPR be sort of MMR based, possibly a little bit like the wrong thing to do. I think it would be interesting to do role-based matchmaking and to maybe do matchmaking based on pre-made versus not pre-made. I don't necessarily know if we need to have an ELO system or a ranking system when the match is 20v20. You are literally one person out of 40. How big of an impact do you solo have? Personally, I don't think it's necessarily worth having it in that system, but we should have, you know, the option to be able to play against non-pre-mades and stuff like that. However, I won't necessarily mind it. If I get put with all the, you know, terrible players with me, then that's fine. I'm happy. At least I'm having fun in my games. I just don't necessarily think OPR is where you would do that. I think arena, on the other hand, having like a proper ranked arena, that makes sense. You make it so you can only solo queue or you can triple queue, and you have a ranking system, and then the best PvPers can have at it. And the terrible PvPers like myself, or the inadequate ones, we can fight at the bottom. All good, we're happy with that. So let's see what we get, but it's coming now that they have the player base. The next one, if I'm honest, it's maybe a little bit weak because they don't quite overtly say it. And that is talk of an automatic group finder when it comes to expedition. Now, I think I'm just going to play the clip.
Obviously, the Pug Finder, it's going to be super important for people who love our expeditions and that content. Being able to find groups with roles and getting match made into that quickly. Cross-world, lots of people, lots of quick matches. I mean, that's what we want.
But basically, they don't say exactly we're going to have an automatic group finder. They say you're going to be able to very quickly find groups with roles and get into that match. They keep calling it a match. I think it's because he's thinking about arena at the time. Get into that match very quickly. They do say you can be match made, which if I'm honest, I think match made being sort of like more automated than not. So I personally take this to mean that we're going to have an automatic group finder. Now, I know a lot of people don't necessarily want that, and I think with the system of having like Ward and Bane and M10s, then you're probably right. For like an M10 in the current game, it wouldn't really work. Actually, I don't think it'd be that bad, but I understand a lot of people not wanting it. But once they take that away, if you can literally just say it by gear score, you can press the button and you can get into an expedition, then I think that is going to very much help the game just be able to quickly do content. After all, this is an MMO, people want to do the content. Now, some people say, well, why are you taking away some of these social elements? And I completely get that. What I would not take away is the current system, you know, where you have like the board that you can click find group and create your own groups. That should sort of stay, but for certain levels, maybe even all the mutation levels, if I'm honest, you should be able to just click find group. I'd rather spend 30 seconds getting into a group and then dying and wasting the run because whatever, we just died and we weren't able to do it, than spend 20 minutes trying to find the perfect group. I just don't want to do that. That's not the kind of way I want to spend my time. So not overtly stated this one, but I'm sort of maybe possibly reading too much into it, but it does say match made quickly. And in my head, whilst obviously Cross-Realm will speed it up because there'll be more players, I think an automatic queue is really probably where we're heading. And I think it's probably going to come in Q4 when we get Cross-Realm expeditions. I say Q4, what I mean is the winter roadmap. And the next one is a new inventory. Now, if we're honest, we've actually already seen this. I'm not 100% sure how Dukesoft got his hands on this. Apparently some players in the PTR at one point actually had access to this, but it looks like we're going to be getting a new inventory system. Not quite a full UI rework. If I'm honest, it sort of looked like what we have now, but there's like various filters you can do. You can actually rearrange the zones and stuff like that. I'm going to put a link to Dukesoft's video. It's like not very fresh now, if you will. It's actually a couple of weeks old, but it's very interesting if you actually want to have a closer look at it. I'll try and timestamp it to the point where it's actually in the video. But basically, they're talking about how the UI is effectively tech debt, which is a phrase that we were talking about on the stream recently, which is sort of interesting that we hear it here. They talk about the tech debt that they started with a survival game and changed it into an MMO. And that is basically the whole gist of this conversation, how that change sort of caused some problems because they weren't necessarily thinking about the infrastructure that they needed to do some of these systems, mainly cross-server Outpost Rush and then cross-server everything. But they say here the inventory is sort of stored in a specific way. I'm not going to go into it, but it sort of sounds like it's stored mostly on the character in a way, in a serialized way, whereas they want it to be, I don't know, probably more server-side. I'm probably making absolutely no sense there, and I apologize, but I'm not a technical person. I don't really know what they're talking about. And some of the things that they were actually saying were, hey, these are tech changes and we don't want the player to notice them. Fair enough, because I haven't. But the UI at the minute with the inventory, whilst it's sort of visually it's almost pleasing in a way, there's some weird things like you can't have a manual sort. Like you literally can't put stuff where you want it to, and that can be a pain in the backside. And then there's certain things that maybe you want higher up and maybe you want lower down, and it's gonna now actually let you do that. So I'm on board with whatever they give us here. I sort of think we should see like a UI overhaul at some point, but it's functional. Adding more functions will be even better. Absolute side note, I'm talking about the UI. When it comes to professions, there should be a toggle so that you can select at the craft station which profession you want to do. Like if you want to just look at the weaponsmithing stuff, like let me do that at a craft station. Come on. Like, just do it. Just a little pet peeve. I've often thought about it. I mentioned it on stream, and I was like, yeah, let's just throw that in a random video. Well, here it is. So perhaps a little bit of a dry update, if you will, but if you read in between the lines, then I think it's very fascinating. Sounds like we're going to get some kind of MMO matchmaking in Outpost Rush and Arena, although I think it actually should just be Arena and then, you know, no pre-mades in Outpost Rush, but whatever. It sounds like we're going to get an automatic group finder. I have to believe that's coming. It makes a lot of sense, and whilst they've not overtly stated it, for me it was very strongly hinted at. And then the UI inventory overhaul, if I'm honest, I think that's probably coming in the expansion. You can sort of go and watch it on Juice Loss video if you want. Let me know your thoughts. Did I miss anything else in this video? It's about 23 minutes long, but there's a lot of like dry subjects if I'm honest. But if I missed anything important, do let me know in the comments below. Big shout out to my YouTube members, and I'll be talking about all of the things that we just learned today on my live stream tomorrow morning. So come and give me a follow there, or don't. What you should definitely do though is have a most beautiful, beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.